the Channing Tatum libido protocol. Now look, seriously, I'm going to give you 3 tiers of protocols that you can take, whether you are a natural and have low libido, whether you are on TRT and have low libido, or whether you are a natural or on TRT and have low libido. Libido, defined as the desire for sexual activity, is sometimes difficult to dial in, and the window of hypothalamus dopamine as well as testosterone and estradiol is very, very narrow. These hormones and these neurotransmitters need to be perfectly dialed in order for you to have libido. In this video, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to give you 3 tiers, 3 different protocols for every situation for that Channing Tatum libido. Discount codes for product. Look, 20% off both of our new courses, especially Supercharged Dopamine. The code for that is 20 now. Links are in the description or at livecortex.com. The Cortex Stack. If you want a high-powered stimulant but also induces focus and flow, get the stack. 25% off. Code for that is 25 Cortex. The Torque Stack. All-day mental energy, all-day motivation and focus. 25% off right now for this stack. The code for that is 25 Torque. And lastly, I am a consultant on nootropics, TRT, energy optimization, sexual function for males, and a host of other things, and you can hire me in under a minute at livecortex.com. Okay, so let's get to protocols. I'm going to break this down in 3 different tiers. The first tier is you are natural or not on TRT and you don't have libido. The second tier is you are on testosterone replacement therapy and you still don't have libido. And the third tier is a strategy for naturals or people on TRT that don't have libido. Okay, so right off the bat, for people that are naturals, meaning you're not on exogenous hormones or not on exogenous testosterone, the most predominant thing that you can do to improve libido and get it to this Channing Tatum level is increase pulsatile luteinizing hormone release, as well as hypothalamic dopamine release. In order to do that, you would execute the following protocol. Number 1, 5,000 IU vitamin D every day. Number 2, 200 to 500 milligrams mucuna purines every other day. The reason I've got a range is because that stuff raises adrenaline and noradrenaline too, and that can be overstimulating for some people. So you're going to have to find your dose within that range and dose it every other day. Number 3, for naturals without libido, is 100 IU, that is international units, of HCG a day. That stands for human chorionic gonadotropin. It is essentially gonadotropin replacement. It is an LH-FSH agonist, and it stimulates the testicles to make testosterone, much more so than your natural state in this context. Chances are, if you don't have libido and you're not on TRT, testosterone is low or lower than it should be for you. You bump it up a couple hundred nanograms per deciliter, or maybe a few hundred nanograms per deciliter, testosterone as well as estradiol is going to change in a favorable way. And therein lies one of the most critical elements to libido. You're going to inject HCG subcutaneously in belly fat, preferably using an insulin needle. Number 4, 10 milligrams Cialis or tadalafil a day. Obviously, tadalafil or Cialis is an erection enhancing drug. There is something to say about having increased erectile function and therefore increased blood flow and nerve function, which equals increased sensation and sensitivity in the junk. In addition to giving you erection quality, seems to help people's libido. There's no shortage of posts like this. Why does Cialis seem to increase my libido? There's a couple mechanisms, potential mechanisms for this. Number 1, Cialis modulates the genetic activity of the aromatase enzyme, which controls your serum estrogen. So it could modulate that activity, which may knock estrogen down a little bit. And if it's slightly out of range for you, it actually may put you in a better range for libido, but it doesn't really modify estradiol all that much. Cialis, as I have alluded to in the past and done research on and content on, does enhance neurological blood flow. So theoretically, this could be improving hypothalamic dopamine release. It could be improving pituitary gonadotropin release. These things are dependent on a lot, but blood flow helps. Now, at the same time, you got this guy in the comment section that goes, I think Cialis causes more spontaneous erections, and when I feel my guy start to get a little full of himself, it sends my mind down that road and thus seems to make me horny too. So there could be some sort of psychological element of this where you've got increased sensation, increased sensitivity, increased erection frequency, and then your mind can comfortably and relax go down that route of having libido. Either way, though, the erection quality that comes for most guys with 10 milligrams Cialis a day, which a lot of doctors actually prescribe, so that it's safe so long as you don't have blood pressure issues and you clear it with your doc and you understand how it affects chemistry. That is a very good dose, a very good daily dose for very great erections, which is going to help libido as well. Now, here's the most important part. On days where you need peak libido, okay, where your libido needs to be at its absolute pinnacle, inject 1 to 2 milligrams of PT-141 subcutaneously. Now, PT-141 may come with side effects like nausea and facial flushing in the first 2 to 4 hours after you dose. It usually goes away thereafter. The onset time it takes to onset is between hour 2 and hour 6. You have to mess around with it to see when it onsets for you, but when PT-141 onsets, which is a melanocortin receptor agonist, which fosters large hypothalamic dopamine release, lots of dopamine throughput in that area, and that is literally the libido center of your brain.
Just a little reminder to you guys, when you hit the like button, actually makes a real big difference on the channel, okay? So if you would, just take a little bit of time out of your fucking day and hit the goddamn like button.
That's why this stuff is so effective. Now, this also affects erection quality too, so you'll have rockin' erections there. But you really just want to do all this on a consistent basis and then dose PT-141 in this dose range when you need your libido to be at its peak. That is the protocol for naturals that have low libido. Tier 2, you're on TRT, but you don't have libido. This is what you do. This is the protocol. Number 1, examine your bloods. Look at your total testosterone, your free testosterone, and your estradiol. If any of them are above range, especially estradiol, you're probably going to want to get that down. A lot of guys believe that having super high, super physiologic levels of testosterone and high levels of free or serum testosterone means their libido is going to be high, and that's usually not the case. Because with that comes a lot of aromatization of testosterone into estrogen, and estrogen will kill your libido past a certain range. So look at your bloods, look at where numbers are, okay? Number 2, lower estradiol, because chances are if you're on TRT and you don't have libido, it's usually one reason. The dose is far too high, you're making too much estrogen, or just the dose is fine for you, but you're making entirely too much estrogen. So number 2, lower estradiol via Arimidex. It's an aromatase inhibitor, which I've done videos on before, and you got to dose extremely low to not have large fluctuations and to not drop the estradiol below 20 picograms per milliliter. You don't want it there. You want it in the range of 20 to 35 picograms per milliliter. That is the libido sweet spot for guys on TRT. If you can't dial in the dose of Arimidex, which happens to some guys because that's a notoriously hard drug to dose, then you want to lower your testosterone and or your HCG dose if you're running gonadotropins on TRT. A reasonable place where after 5 weeks you run bloods again and the estradiol is in the 20 to 35 picograms per milliliter range. Now that may take you multiple iterations of doing that. You change your dose, you wait 5 weeks, you run the labs, it's sitting at 40. All right, you lower the dose a little bit more, wait 5 weeks, run the labs. Now it's at 32 and you're good. I can't stress enough how many guys I've had to intervene on this ideological mindset that they needed to just be super physiologic and they'd have killer libido to teach them that it's just not how it works. Folks, understand if you can shoot for between 600 and 800 nanograms per deciliter, which is high normal testosterone levels for a male on your TRT protocol, then your estradiol is more than likely going to fall in that range. Number 3, target the slight lowering of prolactin by using 100 to 200 milligrams of P5P or pyridoxine 5-phosphate, which is the bioavailable active form of vitamin B6, every other day. You're going to synthesize more dopamine, and therefore you're going to inhibit lactotrope cell firing of prolactin. You'll have a lot less inhibition of blood flow, erection quality, and libido. Run the 10 milligrams Cialis daily. I mean, I think that's a great dose and a great strategy for most men in most situations. You just want erection quality to be max, and that's a very, very safe drug to be taking. Don't feel any shame in dosing tadalafil. It's just really an optimization chemical for a lot of things, blood flow, cardiac function, but obviously penile function. Again, number 5, days where you need peak libido. okay, to its pinnacle. Like say you're going to go out later that night. You've got to time this, pretty close to perfectly, which is why you should experiment with PT-141. But again, 1 to 2 milligrams PT-141 injected subcutaneously in belly fat. Give it the appropriate time, again, 2 to 6 hours, depending on the person. When you feel libido peaking, then go engage in your sexual activity or whatever it is you're trying to improve libido for. Tier 3. Now, this is for naturals or for people on TRT, and it is simply to run 12.5 to 25 milligrams of Proviron a day. Proviron is a compound otherwise known as mysterolone, which is a synthetic DHT derivative, which has the capability of fixing mutated androgen receptors, modifying androgen receptors, obviously binding to androgen receptors, causing subsequent genetic activity, which influences both estrogen and libido. Proviron is a very, very powerful libido enhancing chemical that if it's right for you, because it's not right for everybody, and you get the dose right, will not only make your libido great, but in some cases revive libido that has been down for a significant time. Now on tier 3, you could also dose, your 10 milligrams, if I can type this, 10 milligrams Cialis daily. And of course that is going to help. Accordingly, if you need to, on peak days or days where you need to peak libido, you can again dose 1 to 2 milligrams PT-141. That's just kind of adding a cherry on top, right? That's going to make it libido very explosive on those days.
Just a little reminder to you guys, when you hit the like button, actually makes a real big difference on the channel.
Look, one of the major things that I do as a consultant is help males regain their libido. Like, again, I had this in tiers because there's different situations in which you have to do different things in order to regain and amplify libido. Once you understand the physiology, the neuroendocrine physiology of libido, you can basically manipulate it any way that you want to. That's one of the things I do, and you can hire me for sexual dysfunction, optimizing erection quality, improving libido in under a minute at livecortex.com. Remember, 20% off supercharged dopamine, which, by the way, supercharging dopamine and hacking that entire system helps libido substantially. Use the code 20NOW to get supercharged dopamine. That's a video course of yours truly. Cortex Stack, focus and flow and hardcore energy in a bottle. I mean, people stop taking their Adderall and their modafinil to take Cortex. Coupon code 25Cortex saves you 25% right now. Same thing with Torque. People stop taking their prescription dopamine stimulants, right? That they've been on for years and that they ultimately end up hating, and take Torque and have a much better time, but they feel better. They're more motivated. They have their life back. Their energy is back. Buy the Torque Nootropics Stack right now. 25% off code for that is 25Torque. All right, boys, it's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. Appreciate the fact that you're here. Like the video, subscribe if you're new. Hope you're having a great week, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
If you would, just take a little bit of time out of your fucking day and hit the goddamn like button.